I first learned to ride a bike as a 5-year-old and then rode off and on in my 20s and 30s. If you're like me and just starting out in mountain biking after having ridden only on paved surfaces, there are some things you will need to learn and to practice before you hit the trails. First, get to know your bike. Today's mountain bikes have lots of controls, and you should know what each of them does and be able to operate them instinctively. The array of controls that you can reach from your riding position on your bike is commonly called your cockpit. Become familiar with your cockpit and you will be able to control your ride. Let's look at the controls on the bars. I'll be using my bike for demonstration purposes, and you will note that I have a 1x11 drivetrain and thus no front derailleur. Your setup may vary. First of all, the brakes. The front one is on the left and the rear one is on the right, at least in the United States. Remember that disc brakes on today's mountain bikes are very powerful. You can apply plenty of pressure with just your pointer finger. Grabbing a handful of brakes results in abrupt stopping and maybe even a crash. Get in the habit of one finger braking. There's work for your thumbs to do too. On my left-hand side, the thumb controls the seat dropper post. This allows me to raise my seat for efficient pedaling on smooth, flat surfaces or uphill. Or I can lower the seat so I can get in a low riding position on descents. On the right-hand side, the thumb performs the shifting of the rear derailleur. Get straight in your mind which lever to press to go up to a larger gear or down to a smaller one. Braking, shifting, and adjusting the seat dropper post should be done without removing your hands from the bars. Since I ride on a lot of trails used by hikers, I've also installed a bell on my handlebars that I can use to warn hikers of my approach. Folks respond better to its friendly sound than to a shout. Off the bars, there are a couple of controls that you may have to adjust your suspension. Lock out the forks and shock for efficiency when riding on smooth or uphill terrain. Don't forget to unlock them again when the trail descends or gets bumpy. Take your bike out on some pavement away from traffic and practice starting, stopping, shifting, braking, etc. Using the bike's controls should become second nature. If you have to pause and think about what to do on the trail, it could be too late. Find a spot with little or no traffic to practice some basic skills. My neighborhood park has lots of nice places to practice mountain biking skills, including a baseball field. The infield is an ideal smooth dirt surface, and being that it's December, I know it won't be used by the Little Leaguers until next spring. Here I am practicing rolling up to a line defined by a couple of soccer cones. The idea is to stop at the line and get started again. Make sure to practice stopping and starting on both the left and the right foot. One way will typically feel more natural than the other. Practice that way first, then try the more difficult side. For more of a challenge, put a small obstacle just beyond the cones. First, just ride over it without stopping to get a feel for it. On my first stop and start, I moved the board just a little bit. I rolled smoothly over it on my second try. When you have mastered getting started on smooth, flat dirt, move on to bumpier or sloped surfaces. Here I'm on a hilly, crushed gravel path. The slippery surface and the incline make starting just a little bit trickier. Starting on this slight downhill slope is no big deal. Gravity does all the work for you. Note that I'm rocking back and forth before I push off. This helps to build just a little bit of momentum. Sometimes it can be more difficult to start in a lower gear, as it's easy to spin the back wheel when starting. Watch how my back wheel slips here. Try starting a bit more gently or shift to a higher gear to see if that helps. Experiment with different gears so you learn the best gear to use in a variety of situations.
Ready when you are.
Here I have found a single track trail that shortcuts a long sweeping paved switchback. This hill is actually quite steep and it can be challenging to get started here. Practicing over and over again like this is called sessioning and will really help to improve your skills. Another technique I've used to get started on a hill is to position the back wheel off to the side a bit. This can have the advantage of raising the back wheel and making the incline less steep. You may need to negotiate a slight turn to keep your bike pointed uphill, but this often makes getting started easier. Have you ever noticed that your back wheel does not always go where your front wheel does, especially when you turn? Here, my front wheel easily misses the cone, but the back wheel catches it. See how sharply I need to turn to ensure missing the cone with my back wheel? This is a fun drill to do with soccer cones or paper cups. Arrange the cones in a square and try to go around the circles with your front wheel going outside of the cones while keeping your back wheel inside. There will be many times on the trail when you go around a rock one way with your front wheel and you want the back wheel to miss it on the other side. This is an easy and safe way to practice this skill. You can also move the cones closer together or further apart to vary the exercise a bit. That may make it easier or harder for you. Just keep practicing.
Turn around and go out and come back the other way.
Remember to practice this drill in both directions. It may be easier one way than the other. This exercise can give you skills that will come in handy when negotiating rocky trails.
I don't know, fine.
You don't need to wait until you're out on your favorite trail to practice and improve your mountain biking skills. Look for features in your neighborhood that you can use. It only takes half an hour or so of playing around to improve your skills. This has been Beth, aka Grammy on the Trail. sharing some of my favorite ways to practice in the neighborhood. I am not an expert mountain biker, and my form is far from perfect, but I am out there trying to improve. Next time, I'll share some more practice tips. Remember to get outside, practice, and stay young. Thanks for watching.